Do you ever feel like you're the one who needs a psychologist now that the relationship is over? Do you feel more anxious, more confused, more doubtful of yourself than you ever have in your entire life? Well, I'm here to tell you something you absolutely need to hear. You're not crazy. You were systematically gaslit. Now, I've been doing this for decades, you guys, and I've seen this pattern over and over and over again. People come into my office, they sit down in that chair, and they say, "Dr. Phil, I think I'm losing my mind." And trust me, when I hear that, I know exactly what we're dealing with, because feeling crazy after dealing with a narcissist, that's not a bug in the system, that's a feature. That's what they designed it to do. We're going to call this what it is. It's post-traumatic confusion. It's the fog of war. After you've been in a psychological battle, you didn't even know you were fighting. And by God, that's exactly what it was, a war on your reality, a war on your sanity, a war on your very sense of self. I want to walk you through something right now, and I need you to be honest with yourself. I'm going to ask you some questions, and if you find yourself nodding along, well, you're in the right place. Do you find yourself replaying conversations over and over in your head, trying to figure out where you went wrong? I'm talking about lying awake at 3 a.m, going through every word, every gesture, thinking, if I had just said this differently, if I had just been more understanding, if I had just stopped right there. That's not normal relationship reflection. That's trauma response. Are you constantly second-guessing your own memory of events? Do you think, maybe it didn't happen that way, maybe I am too sensitive? Let me tell you something. I've worked with thousands of people, and when someone starts questioning their own memory consistently, that's not sensitivity, that's systematic manipulation. Your brain is trying to reconcile two different realities, and it's exhausting. Do you feel a profound sense of loneliness and isolation, even if you're surrounded by people? Like nobody really understands what you went through? Oh my God, this one breaks my heart every time I hear it. You're sitting in a room full of friends, family, people who love you, and you feel like you're on an island. Because how do you explain to someone that the person everyone thought was so charming, so wonderful, was slowly dismantling your sanity piece by piece? Is your self-esteem in the gutter? Do you feel like you're fundamentally unlovable or broken? This one makes me angry. Because I've seen strong, successful, intelligent people reduced to feeling like they're worthless. And it didn't happen overnight. It was death by 1,000 cuts. If you're nodding your head to any of this, you're in the right place, because that's not a personality flaw, that's a wound. That's the residue of narcissistic abuse. And just like any other wound, it needs proper treatment, proper understanding, and proper healing. Now, I see thousands of you watching this, and I know I'm not just talking into a void. I want this to be a conversation. So get down in those comments right now and tell me, what's the one phrase your ex used over and over that made you question your own sanity? Was it, "You're being dramatic"? I never said that. You're remembering it wrong. Let's expose these tactics for what they are. Because when you see it written down by 100 other people, you'll know you weren't alone. You know what? I'm going to share something personal with you guys. My own father, and I've talked about this before, I think he was a covert narcissist. And growing up in that house, there were times I questioned my own reality. I'd remember something happening one way, and he'd swear up and down it happened completely differently. Made me feel like I was going crazy as a kid. So when I see this pattern in adults who've been through narcissistic relationships, I get it. I really get it. The manipulation is so subtle, so insidious, that you don't even realize it's happening. It's like someone slowly turning down the lights in a room. You don't notice it's getting darker until you're sitting in near darkness wondering how the hell you got there. And here's what makes me really angry about this whole thing. Society doesn't get it. People will say, "Well, why didn't you just leave?" Or, "I would never put up with that." Let me tell you something. Those people have never been systematically gaslit by a professional manipulator. They have no idea what they're talking about. Listen to me. Feeling crazy after dealing with a narcissist is the most sane reaction you can have. It means your brain is trying to make sense of the senseless. Your psychological immune system was working exactly like it was supposed to. It was rejecting the poison they were feeding you. But they kept force feeding it to you until you started to think maybe the poison was actually medicine. We're going to pull back the curtain on the perfect person you fell for, because you need to understand the mask to understand the monster. And trust me, once you see it clearly, you'll never be fooled again. I'm doing this series because you guys have asked for it, and it's critically important. Have a good week, and I appreciate you spending this time with me. Everybody loved them, right? Oh, they were so charming, so funny, so generous. Your friends thought they were the greatest catch. Your family was thrilled. They were the life of the party. But then the door would close and the show was over, and you were left alone with the real person. Let me tell you something. I've been doing this for decades, and this pattern is so predictable it's almost nauseating. You'd sit in that chair across from me and say, "Dr. Phil, everyone thinks I'm crazy. Everyone loved my ex. They think I'm the problem." And trust me, I've heard it 1,000 times. Because these people, these narcissists, they are master performers. They've got a public face and a private face, and the difference between the two is like night and day. Think about it. At parties, they were the life of the room. They'd tell the funniest stories, so they'd remember everyone's name. They'd compliment your mother. They'd help with the dishes. Your friends would pull you aside and say, "Oh my God, you hit the jackpot." Your family would say, "This one's a keeper." But the minute you got in that car to drive home, the mask came off. The charm disappeared. The warmth evaporated. And you're sitting there thinking, what the hell just happened? This wasn't a normal courtship. This was a campaign. It's called love bombing. They mirrored you. They studied you. They figured out exactly what you wanted to hear, what your deepest dreams were, and they became the answer to all of them. Let me paint you a picture here. It's like a salesman who knows exactly what features you want in a car before you even walk onto the lot. They're not selling you a car, they're selling you a fantasy. And you bought it. We all would have. Because they did their homework on you better than any detective, better than any researcher. They knew your vulnerabilities, your hopes, your dreams, your fears, and they weaponized all of it. I want you to think back to the beginning of that relationship. The speed of it all, it was too good to be true, wasn't it? Normal relationships take time to develop. You get to know each other gradually. You discover compatibility over months, maybe years. But with them, 3 weeks in, they're talking about your future together. They're making plans for next Christmas. They're talking about where you'll live, what you'll name your kids. It was intoxicating, wasn't it? The constant praise and attention. Oh my God, you felt like you were the only person in the world that mattered to them. They'd text you good morning before your alarm went off. They'd send you flowers at work for no reason. They'd tell you you were the most beautiful, the most intelligent, the most amazing person they'd ever met. You'd never been made to feel so special in your entire life. And the future faking, trust me, I've seen this a million times. They were planning your wedding on the 3rd date. They were talking about the house you'd buy together, the trips you'd take, the life you'd build. They painted this picture of this perfect future, and you could see it so clearly because they made it seem so real, so attainable, so right there within your grasp. But here's what you didn't know, and how could you? They were running a playbook. Every compliment, every gesture, every romantic moment was calculated. They weren't falling in love with you. They were conducting a psychological experiment to see how quickly they could get you hooked. And then one day it just stopped. The switch flipped. Suddenly the very things they adored about you became your biggest flaws. Your passion became drama. Your sensitivity became neediness. Your intelligence became a threat. I remember working with a woman, brilliant attorney, successful, confident, and she told me about how her ex used to brag about her career to everyone. He'd introduce her as my brilliant lawyer girlfriend, but behind closed doors. He'd roll his eyes when she'd talk about a case she'd won. He'd say things like, "You always have to be the smartest person in the room, don't you?" When she'd share good news about work, he'd find a way to diminish it. You'd tell a story you've told 100 times, and they'd look at you with contempt and say, "You always have to be the center of attention, don't you?" And you're left standing there thinking, what just happened? Because literally 3 months ago, they were hanging on your every word, telling you how fascinating you were, how they could listen to you talk for hours. The confusion is real. The whiplash is real. One day you're their everything, the next day you're their burden. And you start walking on eggshells, trying to figure out what changed, what you did wrong, how you can get back to those early days when everything was perfect. But here's the truth that's going to hurt, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it because that's not what I do. Here's the hard pill you have to swallow, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. The person you fell in love with never existed. It was an act, a role they played to get what they wanted. And accepting that is the first real step to getting your life back, because you can't mourn someone who was never there. That charming, attentive, loving person you fell for, that was a character they created specifically for you. They studied you like a script, and they played the part perfectly. But it was never real. It was never authentic. It was a performance designed to get you emotionally invested so they could have power over you. And that's the hardest part for people to accept, because you have real memories of feeling loved, of feeling cherished, of feeling like you found your person. But those feelings were based on a lie. They were based on manipulation so sophisticated that even mental health professionals can get fooled by it. The good news: once you understand this, really understand it, you stop trying to get back to something that never existed in the first place. You stop blaming yourself for the change in them. You stop thinking you can love them back to who they were in the beginning, because they never were that person. That person was a costume they put on to catch you. And once they had you, they didn't need the costume anymore. Now, when I say narcissist, you're probably picturing some loud, arrogant, chest-thumping egomaniac who talks about themselves all day. And you're not wrong. That's your classic, overt narcissist. But I'm going to tell you about a different breed, one that's far more subtle and, in my opinion, sometimes far more dangerous. I'm talking about the covert narcissist, the victim. Let me tell you something. In my decades of doing this work, the overt narcissists are almost easy to deal with because they show you exactly who they are right from the start. They're like a neon sign flashing danger. You can see them coming from a mile away, but these covert ones, oh my God, they're like carbon monoxide. You can't see it, you can't smell it, but it'll kill you just the same. Let's talk about your classic overt narcissist first, the easy to spot bully. Trust me, you guys, these people are textbook. They're the star of their own movie, and you're just an extra. And I mean that literally. In their mind, the entire world revolves around them. Every conversation somehow gets steered back to them. Every achievement you have gets minimized because it takes attention away from their spotlight. They demand respect, they don't earn it. You know the type. They walk into a room expecting everyone to stop what they're doing and pay attention to them. They expect special treatment. They expect to cut in line. They expect everyone to cater to their needs. And if they don't get it, oh boy, watch out. The tantrum that follows would embarrass a 5-year-old. They have no empathy. They could run over your dog and then complain that it dented their bumper. I'm not being dramatic here. I've literally worked with people like this. I had one guy tell me with a straight face that his wife was being selfish for crying at her mother's funeral because it was embarrassing him in front of his business associates. The level of self-centeredness is just mind-boggling. They're grandiose. They think they're God's gift, and they're waiting for you to agree. Everything they do is the best, the biggest, the most impressive. Their job is the most important job in the company. Their problems are the most serious problems anyone has ever faced. Their opinions are facts, and if you disagree, well, you're just not smart enough to understand their brilliance. But here's the thing, as toxic as these people are, at least you know what you're dealing with. They're obvious. They're in your face. You can see the manipulation coming because they don't even try to hide it. Now let me tell you about the covert narcissist, the backdoor manipulator. These folks are much sneakier. They don't come across as superior. They come across as wounded. They weaponize pity. And by God, they are good at it. I've worked with thousands of people over the years, and some of the most destructive relationships I've seen have been with covert narcissists. Because they don't demand your attention, they seduce it. They don't demand your sympathy, they manipulate it out of you. They have this poor me attitude that just permeates everything they do. I'm so talented, but nobody recognizes it. The world is just unfair to me. Everyone always takes advantage of my good nature. Sound familiar? They position themselves as the perpetual victim of circumstances of other people, of life itself. And here's their specialty, the humble brag. Oh, I look so awful without any makeup on, just so you'll say, "Are you kidding? You look amazing." They fish for compliments by putting themselves down, but it's all calculated. They know exactly what they're doing. They're training you to be their constant source of validation and reassurance. The passive aggression, oh my God, this one makes me crazy. Instead of saying, "I'm angry," they'll give you the silent treatment for 3 days. They'll forget to do things they promised. They'll show up late to important events. They'll make snide little comments that cut you to the bone. But if you call them on it, they act like they were just joking, or you're being too sensitive. It's punishment by proxy, and it's absolutely maddening. And the extreme sensitivity to criticism. You can't give them the slightest feedback without them collapsing into a puddle of victimhood, making you the bad guy for even bringing it up. I remember working with a couple where the wife couldn't even suggest that maybe they should leave 5 minutes earlier to avoid being late, without the husband going into this whole spiral about how she thinks he's incompetent and how nothing he does is ever good enough. It's emotional terrorism. These people turn every conversation into a referendum on your character. You bring up a legitimate concern, and somehow you end up apologizing for hurting their feelings. You ask them to help with household chores, and suddenly you're controlling and demanding. You want to spend time with friends, and you're selfish and don't care about their needs. You see the difference. The overt narcissist stabs you in the front. You see it coming. The covert narcissist slips poison in your tea while telling you how much they need you. You're left feeling guilty, confused, and drained. You become their caretaker, and that's a trap that can steal years of your life. The covert narcissist doesn't just want your attention, they want your soul. They want you to revolve your entire life around managing their emotions, validating their worth, and protecting their fragile ego. And the sick part is, they make you feel like you're the selfish one if you don't want to do it. I've seen people lose themselves completely in these relationships. Strong, capable, intelligent people who suddenly can't make a decision without wondering how it's going to affect their partner's mood. They stop seeing friends because it might upset them. They turn down opportunities because they might make their partner feel insecure. They become a shadow of themselves, and they don't even realize it's happening. The manipulation is so subtle, so insidious, that you think you're being a good partner, a caring person. But you're not in a relationship. You're in a hostage situation where the hostage taker convinced you that you're there by choice. Trust me, you guys, I've been doing this work for decades, and the covert narcissist is often more dangerous than the overt one because they're harder to spot, harder to call out, and harder to leave. Because how do you leave someone who needs you so much? How do you abandon someone who's trying their best but just can't seem to get it together? Well, let me tell you, their incompetence is not your responsibility. Their emotions are not your project. And their version of love is not love at all, it's consumption. Have you ever been in an argument where you have facts, you have evidence, you have receipts, and you walk out an hour later apologizing for something you didn't even do? How the hell does that happen? It happens because you're not having a discussion. You're being subjected to a strategy. Let me tell you something, I've been doing this for decades, And I've seen this pattern so many times it makes me sick. People come into my office, they sit down in that chair, and they say, "Dr. Phil, I don't understand how this keeps happening." I go into these conversations knowing I'm right, with proof, with evidence, and somehow I come out feeling like I'm the crazy one. And that's when I know exactly what we're dealing with. These people have a playbook, you guys. It's not random chaos, it's calculated psychological warfare. And they're damn good at it because they've been practicing their whole lives. This is their number one weapon. It's the relentless denial of your reality. Let's list them off. You've all heard them. That never happened. Oh my God, how many times have you heard that one? You bring up something they said or did, something you remember clear as day, and they look at you like you're speaking a foreign language. That never happened. You're making it up. You're imagining things. This one makes me so angry because it's designed to make you question your own sanity. You know what you saw, you know what you heard, you know what you experienced, and they just dismiss it like you're some unreliable narrator in your own life story. I was just joking. You're too sensitive. Oh, this is a classic. They say something cruel, something hurtful, something designed to cut you down, and when you react naturally, like any human being would, suddenly it's your fault for being too sensitive. They get to be cruel and make you the problem for having feelings about it. You're the one who's crazy, not me. This is the ultimate projection. They take their own dysfunction and flip it right back on you. By the time they're done with you, you'll be doubting your own damn name. It's psychological erosion, plain and simple. I worked with a woman once, brilliant executive, ran a multi-million-dollar company, and her husband had her convinced she was losing her memory. She started writing things down because she thought she was going crazy. Turned out he was moving her keys, hiding her important documents, changing appointments in her calendar. He was literally making her think she was losing her mind. That's gaslighting at its most evil. This is when they bombard you with nonsense. They'll change the subject, bring up something you did 10 years ago, accuse you of what they're doing, and talk in circles until you're so exhausted and confused you just give up. That's the goal, to wear you down until you surrender. You go in to talk about them being late for dinner, and somehow you end up arguing about how you embarrassed them at your cousin's wedding 3 years ago. You bring up their drinking problem, and suddenly you're talking about how you don't support their dreams. You ask them to help with the dishes, and somehow you're the controlling one who never appreciates anything they do. It's like trying to nail Jell-O to a wall. Every time you think you've got a point pinned down, they slither away to something else. And they're masters at taking whatever you're accusing them of and throwing it right back at you. If you say they're being manipulative, suddenly you're the manipulative one. If you say they're lying, suddenly you're the liar. I remember working with a couple where the husband would literally talk for 2 hours straight without letting his wife get a word in. 2 hours! He'd jump from topic to topic, bring up ancient history, accuse her of things that made no sense, and by the end of it, she was so mentally exhausted she'd just agree to whatever he wanted just to make it stop. That's not communication, that's psychological torture. This one is just plain evil. This is when they go to your friends, your family, even your kids, and they play the victim. They twist the story, lie, and manipulate until the people who are supposed to be your support system are looking at you like you're the problem. They turn people into their flying monkeys to do their dirty work. Let me tell you how this works. You have a fight with them about their drinking. The next day, they're on the phone with your sister, crying about how you're being mean to them, how you're always picking fights, how they don't know what they did wrong. They don't mention the drinking. They don't mention the cruel things they said. They just paint themselves as the victim of your unreasonable behavior. Before you know it, your own family is calling you asking why you're being so hard on your poor partner. Your friends start pulling away because they've been told you're going through something, and you're not yourself. Your support system gets turned against you, and you end up more isolated than ever. I've seen them do this with children, you guys. They'll tell the kids that mommy is being mean. That daddy is sad because mommy doesn't love the family anymore. They'll weaponize everyone and everything to make you look like the problem. It's sick, it's twisted, and it's devastatingly effective. The worst part, these flying monkeys think they're helping. They think they're being good friends or family members by talking sense into you. They have no idea they're being used as weapons in someone else's psychological warfare. You need to recognize this playbook. Not so you can get better at arguing with them. Trust me, you'll still lose. You need to recognize it so you can say, I'm not participating in this, and walk away. The only way to win is to refuse to play their sick game. Once you see these tactics for what they are, manipulation strategies, not genuine communication, you can't unsee them. And when you refuse to engage, when you stop trying to defend yourself against their nonsense, when you stop JDing, that's justify, argue, defend, explain, you take away their power. I want you to understand something. These people don't argue to resolve anything. They don't fight to solve problems. They argue to control you, to confuse you, to wear you down until you submit. The moment you realize that, the moment you stop trying to win an argument with someone who's not arguing in good faith, that's the moment you start getting your life back. These tactics work because they're designed to exploit normal human psychology. Normal people want to be understood. Normal people want to resolve conflicts. Normal people assume that other people are operating with the same basic honesty and good faith that they are. But narcissists, they're playing a completely different game by completely different rules. Stop trying to make sense of the senseless. Stop trying to reason with the unreasonable. Stop participating in their psychological circus. You don't owe them an explanation for your reality. You don't owe them a defense of your own experience. You don't owe them anything. I know what people on the outside say. Why did you stay so long? Why didn't you just leave? Let me tell you something. That is the most ignorant and insulting question you can ask a survivor. It's like asking a heroin addict why they don't just put the needle down. You weren't in a relationship, you were in a biochemical trap. Listen to me carefully, because I've been doing this for 40 plus years, and I have seen this pattern destroy the lives of some of the strongest, most intelligent people I've ever worked with. And when people ask that question, why didn't you just leave? It tells me they have absolutely no understanding of what really happened to you. None whatsoever. You know what makes me angry? When someone who's never walked in your shoes, who's never had their brain hijacked by an abuser, sits there and judges you for not leaving sooner. It's like asking someone with cancer why they don't just stop having cancer. It shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what trauma bonding actually is. This isn't about love. This is about addiction. It's a cycle. They push you away, they devalue you, they create chaos and stress. Your cortisol levels go through the roof, and then they pull you back in. They give you a crumb of affection, a moment of kindness, and your brain gets a hit of dopamine and oxytocin. It's a chemical cocktail of abuse and reward. Let me break this down for you in terms your brain can understand. When they're devaluing you, when they're being cruel, when they're giving you the silent treatment, your stress hormones are flooding your system. Your body is in fight or flight mode. You're literally in survival mode, and it's exhausting. Your cortisol is through the roof, your adrenaline is pumping, and your brain is screaming, DNG or Ben. And this is the sick part. They come back. They apologize. They bring you flowers. They tell you they love you. They promise it'll never happen again. And bam, your brain gets flooded with dopamine, with oxytocin, with all those feel-good chemicals. It's like getting a drug after going through withdrawal. The relief is so intense, so powerful, that your brain starts craving it. Think of it like a slot machine in Vegas. You pull the lever, you get nothing. Pull it again, nothing. 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 You're about to walk away, and then ding, 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 you win a few coins. That intermittent, unpredictable reward is the most powerful motivator there is. It's what keeps gamblers broke, and it's what keeps victims tethered to their abusers. You were addicted to the hope of the next jackpot. I worked with a woman once, brilliant surgeon. saved lives every single day, and she couldn't understand why she kept going back to a man who treated her like garbage 90% of the time. But that 10%, when he was loving and kind and made her feel special, that 10% was so powerful, so intoxicating after all the pain, that it overwrote all the abuse that came before it. Your brain doesn't distinguish between healthy love and trauma bonding. All it knows is that this person can make the pain stop. They created the pain, and they're the only ones who can take it away. It's like being grateful to the person who stops hitting you, even though they're the one who was hitting you in the first place. And here's what really gets me. The people who judge you for staying don't understand that leaving isn't just about walking out the door. It's about overcoming a psychological and biochemical dependency that's stronger than most drug addictions. Because at least with drugs, you know they're bad for you. With trauma bonding, your brain is telling you this person is your source of safety and love. The intermittent reinforcement, that unpredictable pattern of punishment and reward, actually rewires your neural pathways. Your brain starts associating this person with survival itself. When they threaten to leave, your brain panics because it believes you'll die without them. When they come back, the relief is so intense that it strengthens the bond even more. I've seen people who survived war zones, who faced down armed attackers, who conquered their fears in every other area of life, and they couldn't leave an abusive partner. Why? Because trauma bonding hijacks the most primitive part of your brain, the part that's responsible for attachment and survival. It's not a choice you're making with your logical mind. It's your survival instincts gone haywire. So I want you to do something for me right now. I want you to forgive yourself for not leaving sooner. You weren't weak. You weren't stupid. You were a human being with a human brain that got hijacked by a very predictable and powerful psychological process. Your survival instinct got rewired. You know what? I'm going to share something personal with you. I've made decisions in my life that I look back on and think, what the hell was I thinking? But I realize now that in those moments I was operating from fear, from conditioning, from psychological patterns that were outside my conscious control. And the same thing happened to you. Your brain was doing exactly what it was designed to do, trying to keep you alive and attached to what it perceived as your source of safety and love. The fact that this person was actually dangerous to you doesn't matter to those primitive brain circuits. All they knew was that this person could make the pain stop, so they must be important for your survival. The shame you feel about staying, that's just another weapon they used against you. They made you feel like you were choosing this, like you were weak for staying, like you deserved the treatment you were getting. But none of that was true. You were trapped in a biochemical prison, and they were both the warden and the only one with the key. I want you to understand something crucial. Breaking a trauma bond isn't like ending a normal relationship. It's like going through withdrawal from a powerful drug. You're going to crave them. You're going to want to go back. Your brain is going to tell you that you need them to survive, and that's normal. That's not weakness. That's biology. The good news is that just like any addiction, trauma bonding can be overcome. Your brain can be rewired. Those neural pathways that kept you trapped can be rebuilt, but it takes time, it takes support, and most importantly, it takes self-compassion. Stop beating yourself up for having a normal human response to abnormal treatment. Stop judging yourself by the standards of people who've never experienced what you've been through. You survived something that was designed to break you, and the fact that you're here listening to this means you're already on the path to freedom. Your brain got hijacked, but that doesn't mean you're permanently damaged. It means you're human. It means your attachment system worked exactly like it was supposed to. It just got manipulated by someone who understood how to exploit it. I've been doing this work for decades, you guys, and I've seen people break free from trauma bonds that seemed impossible to escape. I've seen them rebuild their lives, learn to trust their own judgment again, and create healthy relationships based on genuine love instead of biochemical manipulation. But it starts with forgiveness, not forgiving them, but forgiving yourself for staying. for going back, for believing their lies, for hoping they would change, for loving someone who was incapable of loving you back. None of that was your fault. All of it was understandable. All of it was human. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not stupid. You are a survivor of psychological warfare, and survival sometimes looks like staying until you're strong enough to leave. The fact that you eventually found the strength to break free, or that you're working on it right now, that's not the minimum you should have done. That's heroic. I'm doing this series because you guys have asked for it, and it's critically important. You have to understand that trauma bonding is real, it's powerful, and it's not your fault. But you also have to understand that you can break free from it. Your brain can heal. Your heart can learn to love in healthy ways. Your life can be your own again. Trust me, you guys, freedom from trauma bonding is possible. I've seen it happen thousands of times. And it starts with understanding what happened to you and why, and most importantly, with forgiving yourself for being human in an inhuman situation. All right, let's get down to brass tacks. You cannot fix these people. You cannot love them into being better. You cannot logic them into seeing the light. It is way above your pay grade, and frankly, it's above my pay grade too. The only path to your own sanity is to cut off their supply, and their supply is you. Listen to me carefully, because I've been doing this for decades, and I have seen people waste years of their lives trying to fix someone who cannot and will not be fixed. I've watched brilliant, capable, loving people run themselves into the ground, trying to reason with the unreasonable, trying to love someone into being a decent human being. Let me tell you something that's going to hurt, but you need to hear it. Every conversation you have with them, every text you respond to, every time you engage with their drama, you are feeding the beast. You are giving them exactly what they want: your attention, your energy, your emotional response. You're not helping them, you're enabling them. You're not being compassionate, you're being their drug dealer. I worked with a woman once who spent 5 years trying to help her narcissistic ex-husband. 5 years! She kept thinking if she could just explain things better, if she could just show him how his behavior was hurting the kids, if she could just love him enough, he would change. You know what happened? He got worse, because she was rewarding his bad behavior with attention, and attention is what these people live for. This is your number one goal. And I mean zero contact. Block the phone number, block the email, block every single social media account, block their friends if you have to. Why? Because any crack you leave open is a doorway for them to slither back in with a text, an email, a memory they just had to share. It's a manipulation. You have to slam the door, lock it, and throw away the key. Let me be crystal clear about this. When I say no contact, I mean no contact, not limited contact. Not only when necessary, not just to see how they're doing. Zero. They don't get to know what you're doing, where you're going, who you're with, or how you're feeling. They don't get updates on your life. They don't get to know if you're happy or sad or struggling or thriving. Nothing. Nada. Zilch. You know why? Because they will use any information against you. If you're struggling, they'll either feel superior or they'll see an opportunity to swoop back in and rescue you. If you're thriving, they'll either try to sabotage it or they'll want to take credit for it. There is no information you can give them that they won't weaponize somehow. Now, I get it. Sometimes you can't go full no contact. You've got kids together. You work together. In that case, you have to become the most boring person on the planet. You become a gray rock. Here's how this works, and trust me, I've seen this strategy save people's lives. They thrive on drama. You give them none. You become so boring, so unresponsive to their bait, that they eventually lose interest and move on to someone who'll give them the reaction they're craving. Your answers are short, factual, and devoid of emotion. Yes. No. Okay. I will handle that. That's it. No explanation, no justification, no emotional response. You become a vending machine. They put in a question, they get out a basic response. Nothing more. No Jetta, do not justify, argue, defend, or explain yourself. It's just fuel for their fire. Every explanation you give is an invitation for them to argue. Every justification you offer is ammunition for them to use against you. Every defense you mount tells them exactly where to attack next time. Let me give you an example. They send a long, baiting text about how you're ruining the kids' lives. You respond, "I will pick up the children at 5 p.m. as we agreed." That's it. You give the fire no oxygen. They want you to defend yourself, to explain your parenting choices, to justify your decisions. Don't do it. Stay boring. Stay factual. Stay emotionally flat. I remember working with a guy whose ex-wife would send him these novels via text, pages and pages of accusations, manipulation, guilt trips. He used to spend hours crafting responses, trying to defend himself, trying to set the record straight. I told him, "Stop. Your response should be one sentence maximum, and only if it's logistically necessary." You know what happened? Within 2 months, she stopped sending the novels because she wasn't getting the reaction she wanted anymore. Now listen, when you do this, they're not just going to shrug and walk away. They're going to freak out. It's called an extinction burst. Their tactics will escalate. They'll rage, they'll cry, they'll send the flying monkeys. You have to hold the line. Your peace, your future, your very soul is on the other side of that boundary. Don't you dare give it up. Think of it like training a toddler. When you first start ignoring a tantrum, it gets worse before it gets better. The toddler screams louder, throws themselves on the floor harder, tries every trick in their book because the old behavior isn't working anymore. Narcissists do the exact same thing. When their usual manipulation tactics stop working, they escalate. They pull out the big guns. They might suddenly declare their love for you. They might threaten suicide. They might claim they're sick or dying. They might say the kids are asking for you. They might show up at your work. They might send flowers with apology notes. Don't fall for it. It's all part of the extinction burst. They're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. I've seen people hold the line for months and then cave at the last minute because the narcissist pulled some dramatic stunt. Don't do it. Remember, they're not reaching out because they love you or miss you or realize they were wrong. They're reaching out because their other sources of supply have dried up and they need a fix. You're not a person to them, you're a drug. Your friends might not understand. Your family might pressure you to be the bigger person. Or forgive and forget. They might accuse you of being cold or cruel. Let them. They don't understand what you've been through. They don't understand that your coldness is actually self-preservation. They don't understand that your boundaries aren't walls, they're life preservers. I want you to understand something. Going no contact or gray rock isn't about punishing them. It's about protecting yourself. It's about finally putting your own mental health and well-being first. It's about refusing to participate in their psychological games anymore. You know what the beautiful thing about no contact is? For the first time in probably years, you get to live your life without constantly looking over your shoulder. You get to make decisions based on what you want, not what will avoid their wrath. You get to discover who you are when you're not constantly managing someone else's emotions. People ask me, "Dr. Phil, isn't this cruel? Isn't this giving up on someone?" Let me tell you something. The cruelest thing you can do is enable someone's destructive behavior by continuing to reward it with your attention. The cruelest thing you can do to yourself is sacrifice your peace of mind for someone who will never appreciate it. You tried love. You tried patience. You tried understanding. You tried compromise. You tried everything. None of it worked because you can't fix someone who doesn't think they're broken. You can't change someone who doesn't want to change. You can't win a game where the other person keeps changing the rules. So stop playing. Take your ball and go home. Protect your peace. Guard your sanity. Value yourself enough to walk away from people who treat you like you're disposable. Because you're not disposable. You matter. Your peace matters. Your mental health matters. No contact and gray rock aren't just strategies. They're declarations of independence. They're you saying, "I will not be your emotional punching bag anymore. I will not be your source of drama. I will not participate in your dysfunction. I am worth more than this. Trust me." You guys, I've seen thousands of people reclaim their lives through these strategies, It's not easy, especially at first. But on the other side of that boundary is a life where you get to wake up without dread, where you get to have conversations without walking on eggshells, where you get to remember who you were before they convinced you that you were the problem. For months, maybe years, they've been the narrator of your story. They've told you who you are. You're needy. You're crazy. You're difficult. You're unstable. You're not good enough. Well, today is the day you fire that narrator. You take back the pen and you start writing your own damn story. Let me tell you something. I've been doing this for decades, and this is where the real work begins. Anyone can identify a toxic person. Anyone can learn to walk away, but rebuilding yourself after psychological warfare, that takes courage, that takes commitment. That takes you deciding that you are worth the effort. I want you to understand something right now. Every single negative thing they said about you was projection. Every criticism, every insult, every cruel comment was them trying to make you feel as small and broken as they feel inside. They couldn't stand your light, so they spent all their time trying to dim it. Well, guess what? The power's back on, and it's time to shine. You know what makes me angry? How these people systematically destroy your self-concept. They take a strong, capable, loving person and convince them they're broken. I've seen brilliant executives who started second-guessing every decision. I've seen talented artists who stopped creating because they were told their work was worthless. I've seen compassionate people who became convinced they were selfish just for having needs. But here's what they couldn't destroy: your core self. It's still there, underneath all that damage. It might be buried, it might be wounded, but it's still there. And we're going to dig it out and polish it up until it shines brighter than ever. What would you tell a friend who had been through this hell? You'd tell them they were strong. You'd tell them they were a warrior. You'd tell them they deserved happiness. It's time you started talking to yourself with that same compassion. You have to learn to reparent yourself and validate your own feelings. Listen to me carefully. You have to become your own best friend, your own biggest supporter, your own most compassionate voice. Because for too long, you've had a critic living in your head telling you you're not good enough. That critic, that's their voice, not yours. It's time to evict that toxic tenant and move in some kindness instead. I want you to start paying attention to how you talk to yourself. When you make a mistake, do you call yourself stupid? When you're struggling, do you tell yourself to just get over it? When you're hurting, do you minimize your pain? Stop it. Stop it right now. You wouldn't treat a friend that way. So why are you treating yourself that way? Start practicing self-compassion like it's a skill, because it is. When you catch yourself being self-critical, pause and ask, what would I say to a friend in this situation? Then say that to yourself instead. It sounds simple, but trust me, it's revolutionary. They isolated you. So your job now is to reconnect. Call that friend you were forced to drop. Pick up that hobby they made fun of. Listen to the music they hated. Do the things that make you feel like you. Each action is a small step back to your authentic self. You know what's beautiful about this process? Every single thing you do to reconnect with yourself is an act of rebellion against their control. Every friend you call back, every song you play, every hobby you pick up again is you saying, I will not let you erase me. I remember working with a woman who loved to paint. Her husband convinced her it was a waste of time, a selfish indulgence, a sign of her being flighty and irresponsible. She stopped painting for 3 years. 3 years! When she finally left him, the first thing I told her was, go buy some paints. You know what happened? She painted for 6 hours straight. She said it felt like coming home to herself. That's what you need to do, come home to yourself. Remember who you were before they convinced you that you were the problem. Remember what brought you joy, what made you laugh, what made you feel alive. Those things are still there, waiting for you to rediscover them. Make a list if you have to. What did you love before? Who were you before? What dreams did you have before they convinced you they were silly? What made you feel confident and capable before they tore you down? Start there. Start reclaiming those pieces of yourself one by one. I want you to ask yourself this one final question. Even with all the pain of the breakup, even with the loneliness and the struggle, do you feel a sense of peace that you never felt with them? Is there a quiet in your home and in your mind that wasn't there before? That quiet, that's your truth. That's your healing. That's your proof that you made the right choice.
Oh my God.
This question breaks my heart every single time because I know the answer before people even say it. Yes, there is a peace. Yes, there is a quiet, even in the middle of the pain and the struggle and the fear of starting over. There is a stillness that wasn't there when you were with them. You know why? Because you're not constantly scanning for threats anymore. You're not walking on eggshells anymore. You're not managing someone else's emotions anymore. You're not constantly defending your reality anymore. For the first time in months or years, you get to just be. That peace you feel, that's not emptiness, that's freedom. That quiet, that's not loneliness, that's your nervous system finally getting to rest. That stillness, that's the absence of chaos, and it's beautiful. I've seen people afraid of this peace, afraid of this quiet, because they've been conditioned to associate drama with love, chaos with passion. But let me tell you something, real love is peaceful. Real love is calm. Real love doesn't require you to constantly prove your worth. The fact that you can breathe easier without them in your life tells you everything you need to know about that relationship. The fact that your home feels like a sanctuary instead of a battlefield tells you everything you need to know about their impact on your life. Trust that peace. Trust that quiet. It's not telling you that you don't deserve love. It's telling you that you deserved better love. It's not telling you to be alone forever. It's telling you to wait for someone who adds to your peace instead of destroying it. You are not broken. You are not damaged goods. You are not too much or not enough. You are a survivor of psychological warfare, and that makes you stronger than most people will ever have to be. You looked evil in the face and chose to walk away. Do you know how many people never find that courage? The person you're becoming, this healed, whole, self-aware version of yourself, is going to be incredible. You're going to have boundaries like fortresses and intuition like radar. You're going to spot red flags from miles away. You're going to know your worth and refuse to settle for less. And when the right person comes along, someone who's also done their work, someone who's healthy and whole, the relationship you build will be based on genuine love, not trauma bonding. It'll be based on choice, not need. It'll add to your peace instead of destroying it. Look, I'm doing this series because you guys have asked for it, and it's critically important. You have to have the power and insight to understand and manage these people out of your life. I want you to take what you've learned today and share it. Get at least one friend to listen to this, because that's paying it forward and saving someone else from this trap. You guys have been incredible on this journey with me. The comments, the messages, the courage you've shown in sharing your stories, it's been humbling. You are warriors, every single one of you. You are survivors. You are thrivers, and you are going to be just fine. Trust the process. Trust your healing. Trust your peace. And most importantly, trust yourself. You've got this. I appreciate you spending this time with me, and I'll be reading your comments